Afternoon, folks. This is our 2-minute warning, so we'll get started here at 2 o'clock promptly. Afternoon, Ms. McCoy. Afternoon, Crystal. Afternoon, Ms. Chandler. Hope everybody's in a really good mood today because it's such a beautiful day outside, so I'm not going to keep you all too long. We try to really curtail some of the things we're going to talk about today. Thank you to Ms. Pam Workman, our social media specialist, who's grouped a lot of these questions for me to make things a lot easier. Jessica, I am having a really good day. Thank you so much for asking. Dr. Neighbors. Shout out to you. We mentioned you a lot yesterday. Good stuff going on. Kids making it to the next round. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so it is 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. As you all have seen with this pattern, anytime we have any major initiatives or announcements that occur at a school board meeting, I always want to make sure I kind of follow up with you all to kind of really give you all, additional insight and answer your questions. Today, we're going to talk about graduation. We're going to talk about the summer series. We're going to talk about next year, the great, exciting programs that were approved last night, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and jump off from the top here. One of the first questions that has come up is, will masks still be required in schools through the end of the year in light of the latest recommendations from the CDC? Right now, the answer is yes. If you saw the latest recommendation from the CDC, it also stated that governor's offices and the state departments of health trump CDC guidelines. So until the state actually makes some adjustments on those, we're going to basically still have the same plan for the rest of the year. Will the CDC ease their mask guidance for fully vaccinated individuals? Again, I think that's all going to depend because one of the things that we actually were discussing today is you technically can't ask someone if they're vaccinated or not. So we always want to make sure that we really try to have the safety protocols in place. I'm going to switch over to graduation because I know that's been a hot topic for a lot of you all. And I know a lot of folks are actually comparing what Suffolk Public Schools is doing with some neighboring school divisions. So I always want to be honest with you all and give you all some background. We also had the opportunity to participate and have our graduation at ODU at their stadium, which would have allowed us to have more tickets. But the problem is that ODU made it very clear to Dr. Lee that if we were to decide to have the graduation there, the graduation was going to happen, rain or shine. And I didn't want to risk all of you all being outside and getting rained on during graduation. So moving that to our own stadiums really gives us a lot more control and a lot more flexibility, which is part of the reason that we've mentioned and talked about that on June 9th, 10th, and 11th, when we have these 3 graduations beginning at 9 a.m., that if it rains and clears up, we'll move it to 7 p.m. If it's still raining in the afternoon, we've already established the rain date of Saturday, June 12th for that. So having graduation in our own stadium really gives us a lot more control and flexibility. The main reason we have 2 tickets right now, ladies and gentlemen, is because of the social distance requirement that is still required anytime you're outside. It's about the capacity of the stadium as well. A college football stadium is so much larger than a high school football stadium. So we wanted to make sure that we still going to socially distance individuals and groups, still using the 6 feet unless that changes from the state. If it does change from the state, then potentially we'll be able to increase the total number of tickets. One of the other questions that's being asked is graduation going to be streamed live? Yes, it's going to be streamed live, similar to what we did for the fall sports season with the National Federations of High Schools and using our Pixelot service. We're going to have that free for you all. So all you have to be able to do is just log in. The links will appear on the school division as well as the individual school websites. You can watch it from all over the country. Yes, it's recorded. You can watch it over and over again. And because, we are going to be outside in June, we'll try to keep graduations to an hour or hour and 15 minutes. Now, if things change as far as any of our safety and health protocols coming down from the state, I actually just got an email probably about 30 minutes ago. I have an emergency superintendent's meeting at 4:30. If things change, then we will let you all know. And that's the good thing about us still having about 3 weeks before graduation. We can increase the ticket amount if we are allowed to. Just as a reminder, all of our seniors will get their graduation tickets on the day of graduation practice. What will school look like next year? Will it be in person 5 days a week? So I hope you all had an opportunity to tune in last night to the presentation on SBS Online from our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Akima Branch. We are planning for school to be 5 days a week next year, starting on September 7th. But we also are going to add an additional option for any families that would like to keep their students virtual. And the program is going to be called SBS Online. I want to be upfront with you and let you know it's going to be different than what we did this year for Educate and Innovate. And the main reason is because face-to-face is kind of the mandate that we've been given. There's been some legislation that's been passed. It's been discussed in superintendent meetings. This means that we still have to meet our 990 hours or 140 hours for SOL verified credit courses, 180 days of instruction. So in order to meet those hours, students would actually have to be online if they choose that option. So a survey is coming out today. For that, if you are interested in having your child participate in the SBS Online program, we're going to leave that open for a couple of weeks. Then we'll kind of set up an application process. Thank you to all of our parents and students who participated in our focus group, gave us some great feedback. Probably going to lock people in for a semester at a time, but we also need to have some criteria looking at how well you did when you were virtually this year, basically through the first 9 weeks. Attendance is going to be key. Again, because we have to make sure we go back to the same rules and regulations we had before the pandemic hit, where attendance of students is necessary for 95% of the time. Walk-in therapy allowed for service plan students. That's going to be the plan. We're really going to try to get back to how things were before the pandemic occurred. Will the Bridge program be in effect? And if so, what are going to be the requirements? So we were actually planning to put the flyer out today for our summer series. You remember one of the things I spoke about was we really want to expand our summer school model. We're going to have our SPS Summer Academy for those students that need more support in English and math. Also need to pass SOLs, traditional summer school, where you can repeat courses or take some new courses. And then the Summer Bridge program, which will be an introduction to the next subject or to the next grade level. And the program is going to be open from July 5th through August 5th. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have that flyer probably going to come out on Monday. But we're trying to see, we had gotten word that there may have been some news coming out from the state today, but that hasn't been confirmed as of yet. Will masks be required for next year? All depends on what the Virginia Department of Health and the governor's office says. If virtual this year, how do we choose in person for next year? So when that survey comes out, if you do not respond, you're going to default to being in person, because we know that we really believe that the majority of our families will choose that in-person option. How will SPS Online work, i.e. elective options? So the elective options are going to be limited because we really want to be able to focus in on the core courses. You will not be able to participate in SPS Online if you're in any of our current specialty programs. AP classes, there still might be an option for you through Virtual Virginia. And right now, Dr. Davenport, our Director of Curriculum Instruction, is working with Virtual Virginia because they understand that school divisions have to have the same number of hours that they normally would for face-to-face instruction. And then one of the main things that we're looking at is ensuring that it actually matches up with our Bell schedule as well. Is summer school offered to all students? Yes. Summer school will be free for Suffolk Public Schools students only. Anyone else that's outside the school division, you will have to pay. And that's really similar to what we did last year as well. Can a high schooler take a new class over the summer? Yes. Can rising kindergartens previously in an early start have access to summer school to prepare them for kindergarten? That's something we're going to really have to take a look at. Right now, we weren't really doing a lot of things with pre-K. We really wanted to be able to focus on the kids that were currently in elementary school, but we are planning for some enrichment activities to occur for our elementary kids over the summer. Will Spanish 1 be offered during summer school, especially for the JFK MS students who were without a live teacher because they were with proximity learning? No, we're not doing world languages for the middle school level. However, we have already built in next year for the first 9 weeks to really spend a lot of time on remediation for our world language courses. Let me see here. Get into vaccinations a little bit. What happens if we don't get our kids the HPV vaccine that is now required from school? And this is directly from the Virginia Department of Health. If a student is missing the HPV vaccine, will they be allowed to attend school? A parent or guardian has the right to decide if a child receives the HPV vaccine. A student is allowed to attend school and be missing the HPV. Parents are encouraged to discuss it with your healthcare provider. And so we already knew that last year, it was a challenge for a lot of you all to get into the doctor's offices. But the other vaccines and the other shots and everything else that's on the medical records, that's still going to be normal. That still has to be completed for full enrollment. And I give a strong shout out to Dr. Rice and our Sarah Williford, our supervisor of nurses. Remember, this is also Nurses Week. They are working on setting up some vaccine locations at our school, kind of similar to what we did for our staff. Hopefully, we'll be able to offer vaccines to our kids over the summer. More information will be coming out about that later. Can we get better flow at Kilby Shores or a police safety officer directing traffic at school entrances and at Turlington? Great question. This was actually brought to our attention about 7 to 10 days ago, and we've already asked the Suffolk Police Department to do a traffic study for that area. We need to start showing elementary kids how to type and use computers if we're going to continue with computers. We are going to continue with computers. In school computer labs, they play games. This needs to be time to learn or how to type and use computer. Well, the second part of that is actually not accurate because we didn't use school computer labs. Remember, with SBS Connect, pre-K through 12 had one-to-one devices. And we're going to continue with that. I definitely agree with you. Some typing skills, some typing tutor, even finding some typing games, that's going to be key. Remember, these days, we really want our Chromebooks to replace the textbook. That's going to be key. And as part of our textbook purchases, making sure that we had ebooks out there for kids to be able to use. That's kind of what they're used to these days anyway. I mean, just think about years ago when everyone was using Kindles and those types of things. Now you even have more opportunities for ebooks that are actually a lot more interactive. This is great ways for us to be able to encourage kids to read. And parents, I'm asking you, please make sure that you still actively engage in reading with your child. You know, we still have some students that come in not even really understanding how to hold a book. So you being able to model that really helps us out. It helps us out with a big push for literacy as kids are beginning to go outside a lot more. You know, ask them to just go outside and sit on the back porch, deck, steps, whatever, and just read a book. How come we are using iReady as part of the curriculum, but other schools are using for kids who need help? So iReady actually has multiple uses. It's part of curriculum, it's part of remediation, it's part of diagnostic. And it really depends on the focus of that individual group of kids. iReady was a great tool. As you all know, we piloted that with several teachers during the 2019-2020 school year, and then did the full purchase this year for 2020 and 2021. And our teachers, who are absolutely amazing, you know, I know it's a week late, but still Teacher Appreciation Week, they have done a tremendous job of using the information that comes from iReady to help drive their lessons, to help us for when it comes to breaking down information for our literacy groups, a lot of small group instructions going on, etc. So we're going to continue using iReady next year. Will before school care go back to normal hours? I'm assuming you're meaning next year for 2021, 2022. The answer for that is a definite yes. As I scroll down to see what my next questions are. What is your expectations for the SOLs this year, and will the result affect in-person learning for the fall? So I think you all have heard me say probably several times before, issuing standards of learning assessments is not a Suffolk Public Schools decision. That has actually come down from the federal government. So we do have to give SOLs this year. And one of the main reasons why you probably have received information from your teachers and from your administrators really encouraging students and families to allow their students to take the SOLs is because the SOL is going to be used as the foundation for our growth measure for next year. So if a student doesn't have an SOL in the SOL eligible courses, this means that our teachers are going to have to use other diagnostic data in order to help determine growth. Now, we know that the accreditation was waived for this year, but next year accreditation is back on. And I think you all have really also heard me, really be honest about we are expecting some dip in scores because we know that the overall percentage of students who will take the SOL this year is probably going to be lower. And, parents have had the option and the choice to not allow their children to take it mainly due to the pandemic. But you have to make sure that you put the proper language in there. Now, I'm actually hoping for this spring series that we have going on, and as our SOL tests, definitely occur on Fridays as well, that we continue to have as many students take the test as possible. And that also gives them, for those kids that are in the third grade, for example, their first opportunity to take the test, to kind of get used to it. Next year, all indicators and every piece of research that I've received and every email from the State Department of Education is basically let me know that they are planning for everything to go back to normal next year when it comes to assessments. You heard me talk about clock hours, things of that nature. What date will start the 2021-22 school year? September 7th, 2021. Our school calendar is also available on our website if you want to take a look. Will it be postponed to recognize the Jewish holiday on September 9th? So that actually was a huge topic. And I'm going to give you all some background that anytime that calendars are being made, we actually make that as a regional decision. And so Dr. Branch, our chief academic officer, was actually part of the regional calendar committee. And the majority, if not all, but maybe one, are actually still going to start school on September 7th. And one of the main reasons we do that is even though we know that we have a large percentage of our staff that actually lives in the city of Suffolk, some of them live in other places. So we always try to make sure that it's a regional decision so that people can kind of match up their work life with their personal life, especially when it comes to childcare. Students are currently slated with an official last day of Friday, June 18th. Since this is an asynchronous day, is it possible to make the teacher workday on Monday, 6/22 optional, since many teachers will have already completed all necessary tasks? That actually came up when we were discussing the calendar this year. And it's kind of one of those unwritten rules, depending on what your building and principal has planned for you. Again, depending on if you've gotten everything completed, we're going to kind of leave that up to the schools as long as everything is completed for the checkout process. I don't really think that's going to really be a major issue. Please explain new community service requirements. How are these to be met? So last year I waived community service for graduation. We also put some waivers in for this year. I plan on doing that again for any senior that's graduating that lost time for this year because of the pandemic. What happens to our students earned that would have met previous requirements? They're still going to be there. This is really going to probably not really get back into effect to being normal as far as community service with the upcoming freshman class. Students were told to start gathering community service hours the summer after 5th grade. Many members of the class of 2024 had earned most, if not all, the hours necessary in the previous requirements. Right, I definitely understand that. And the State Department is giving superintendents a lot of flexibility on how to be able to handle that. So community service hours are not going to prevent a student from graduating or having that seal on there because of the pandemic. We're going to work with you on that. Do you foresee in the near future Suffolk Public Schools working with Paul D. Camp Community College? Mr. Skinner and I found out yesterday is actually now just called Camp Community College, a little bit of their branding and marketing, and building a campus in the North Suffolk area, considering how stretched out Suffolk is. That's a question for Camp. I'll be honest. Suffolk Public Schools, we're focused on rebuilding our own schools. That's going to be our goal. Our school board made public their intentions for our capital improvement plan in December of 2020. We're looking to do work to complete our operations center. We're looking to do work for our expansion of Northern Shores. We're looking to replace John F. Kennedy. We are looking to replace John F. Kennedy. I said that twice for purpose. Replace Forest Glen Middle School. And then working on schools such as Elephants Fork and Kilby Shores. Those are some of the schools that are at the top of our order that we really need to get done. And we're also working on just some building improvements when it comes to lighting and some other things that have to occur. Thank you to the City Council for being proactive and allowing us to have preventative maintenance. And from the facility study that we had with RRMM and cooperative strategies, we know that roof replacement, we know that HVAC needs to be done. And we're talking about $14 million worth of work. So that's really the area that we're kind of focusing in right now, as well as rebuilding new schools. I do not believe in renovations because you're kind of wasting your money. You may renovate a school and then you still have the same issues with the rest of the school that wasn't renovated 10 years later. The lifespan of a school is about 50 years if you do everything right, right? We have several schools that have already reached that 50-year threshold, and we've been putting a lot of money into repairing it when it's time for us to replace it. What is the capacity of the 6 feet distance in the stadium? It's going to be square footage that's actually on the Virginia Department of Education's website. One of the things we're also looking at is potentially using the track for some area. What about the kindergarten graduation? There is no kindergarten graduation. There's one graduation, folks, 12th grade. Now elementary schools do have moving on ceremonies. More than one ceremony to allow more tickets? No, we're not going to do that. You got to think about the staff too. And you also have to think about, ladies and gentlemen, it's June outside with graduation gowns on. It's going to be hot. That's part of the reason why we're actually, doing this at 9 a.m. And if the weather is bad that day but clears up, 7 p.m. will be our next time. We want to make sure that we are as safe as possible. We will have EMTs on site. We will have bottled water on site, trying to find some other ways to make sure that it stays cool for folks. What about 5th grade graduation? Again, moving on ceremony. But I know that our elementary principals have done some things. I know Hill Point Elementary School, for example, is doing a drive-through kind of similar to what we did at the high school level last year. Will anything be done for the 8th graders as they leave middle school? Not really sure what that question means. I guess you're assuming or asking about a moving on ceremony for them as well. That'll be up to the schools. Will all teachers be required to be back in the buildings next year? Yes. That's going to be our goal. But with SPS Online, it's going to be our plan to designate some virtual teachers. And there's going to be some components that kind of go into that. And one of them is going to be, of course, if the teacher has pre-existing medical conditions. The second one is definitely going to be the overall success based on administrative evaluations of the teacher and how well they did in the virtual environment. We've gotten several emails from families and students who really raved about how some teachers really had some great engaging lessons during Educate and Innovate. This was some of the material that also was discussed last night in Dr. Branch's SPS Online presentation. I mean, the groups that we spoke to were very direct in what they like to see, and it had to be more than just PowerPoints and slide decks. They were looking for engaging lessons, great ways to make sure the kids were not just online and kind of going through the motions, but online and actively participating. Will the survey apply to those entering kindergarten for next year? Yes. Will the vaccine be a requirement to go back next year? That will be a Virginia Department of Health answer, not a Suffolk Public Schools one. Are new courses covered or paid for in summer school or just refreshers? We are doing the refreshers, but you will have to pay for the new ones. Is CCAP going to be available if a student remains virtual? So there's an opportunity. We kind of worked some of that out where CCAP is definitely going to have to be hands-on. But if you choose the SPS online option, then you won't be able to do CCAP. Because remember, there's times when you actually leave your home school and go to CCAP. I thought the CDC already stated 3 feet of social distance is just as good as 6 feet. Why is 6 feet still being used? Because 6 feet is the gold standard. And if you look closely, it really was talking about 3 feet for elementary age students. Secondary is still 6 feet. Will we get access to Renaissance again? It's a possibility. One of the things we're taking a look at is just the overall program, just like we did last year, to make sure there wasn't a lot of duplication. But that'll be something that the Teaching and Learning Department will discuss with teacher leaders at the schools. When will the kids get updated Chromebooks? Some of these are really slow. So our replacement cycle is about 3 years. And if you look at the breakdown that Ms. Forsman has kind of talked about on CARES Act and just our normal operating funds, we have cycles of groups that are replaced. Like we gave a lot of teachers new Chromebooks. Administrators got some new ones. Students are coming back up. But remember, we also had to buy more last year. Like when the pandemic hit and schools were closed on March 13th, on March 16th, that Monday, I asked our great director of technology, John Littlefield, get as many Chromebooks as you possibly can. And I was so happy that he beat the rush. Because as you all know, several of our partners in the local school divisions didn't really get their technology until October. So we already have money that is appropriated and budgeted for the next 3 years to replace Chromebooks. Will kids have Chromebooks next year once back to full time? Yes. We're still going to stay one-to-one for our SPS initiative. Can YouTube be blocked? No. YouTube is actually part of our Google Suite, and there's a lot of great instructional lessons that are on there. However, there are some additional filters to make sure that adult material cannot be accessed. Will there be more administrative virtual opportunities due to the new SPS online requirement? Not really understanding what that means. But I can tell you that the SPS online presentation is on our website. We also sent an email out to the staff today, and it's also on the school board website for ESB. Can we take the snow days off the books and end school sooner? 990 hours, 180 days. Cannot go under the 180 days. But remember, it's going to be our goal that if we do happen to have a snow day, which is a rarity here in Suffolk, that virtual learning will pick right back up. You know, one of the things that we kind of asked our teachers to do with their instructional innovation plans this year was also to plan for snow days, like kind of what we probably used to call emergency lesson plans when we were in school. So we're really going to try to apply that same concept next year. Will the custodians have to work until 10 p.m.? Yes, if that is part of the schedule. I mean, we're not going to, remember, we changed the custodial schedules this year to make sure that we had uniformity across the board. And those that are working later is because of the time that you actually come in, especially at the secondary level where there may be activities going on. We need to make sure that we have a custodian there to clean up afterwards, as well as to secure the building. If students already put in their 50 hours before the start of the 2020-2021 school year, what happens? Those hours will carry over. Will there be rezoning? Rezoning is not good for Suffolk Public Schools. That is my answer to that. When replacing JFK, would it stay on the same property that it's currently on? That's going to be a school board decision. I mean, one of the things that I can share with you is if we decide to move any school from its current location, right now in today's dollars, the estimated cost is about $3 million. So to be more cost effective, we would probably try to keep the schools in the same place. But again, that's going to be a school board decision. What is the timeline for Forest Glen's replacement? I have 2 kids in middle school. Will affect them during the school year. So Forest Glen's a little bit further down the road. Again, we have in our CIP that's proposed right now, and the city still hasn't appropriated the money for that, and they'll have their next discussion actually in January of 2022. But as far as what has already been approved previously, and that still continues, we have Northern Shores renovation or expansion to probably about 400 seats there. It's the goal of the school board to really eliminate all of our mobile units. We have phase 2 of the Operations Center, which we've asked to be moved up. There's a CCAP expansion for about 2.4 or so million that has already been approved that we want to do. We got some great ideas. Like, what if our kids could actually learn some pharmaceutical work and some pharmaceutical technology, and then we could actually have our staff come to CCAP to get their prescriptions filled? I mean, that's something that Ms. Forsman, Ms. Burgess, Mr. Skinner, Dr. Lee, we've been kind of talking about ways to really have our staff be a part of that CCAP experience, which would then also allow our students to really have great customer service in the process. So will there not be the same issue as now with kids going back and then not having a teacher in person? So I'm not really sure what you're referring to. Remember, a lot of this depends on what courses the kids actually request. Like we had American Sign Language, for example, on proximity learning because at the time we couldn't find a teacher. There was also a shortage up and down the East Coast for world language teachers, which is the reason why we had Spanish online at JFK. So as more and more people hopefully decide to go into teaching, that would be able to give us more opportunities to make sure that we always have face-to-face instructors. What is service learning? Can students opt out to service hours instead of participating in service learning? We really want to get into the service learning piece because you just don't want to look at things as just community service. What is the kid actually gathering from that? Now, if it's a service learning project, there's going to be some type of culminating activity at the end that kind of documents what's occurring. And then the kid kind of has a showcase at the end of the year or the end of the semester, etc. We actually did a presentation on that during my first year here. Dr. Harrison, our former chief academic officer, really did a presentation showing the board how we're kind of shifting away a little bit from just looking at it as community service and looking at it more as service learning. This will also help us to produce better citizens in the city of Suffolk. Will there be in-person orientation for rising middle and high schoolers? That's what we're planning on. Now, it may have to be in groups or shifts, but remember, this wouldn't take place until August. So we have to be able to see what the governor's office and what the Virginia Department of Health says at that time. Now, with a lot of mandates being lifted with the limit for graduation change, the only thing that was lifted was the outdoors mask piece. Nothing else has changed just yet. Will volunteers be able to be back in the school come the fall? PTAs are struggling not to be able to be in the buildings. Probably. If we're in our normal face-to-face setting, we want to try to do as many things as normal as we possibly can. So summer school is not open to any student who would like to attend. Yes, it is. That's why we have these three tiers in the summer series. We want to try to encourage as many students as possible to go to summer school. Just don't think that summer school is a punishment, okay? Or just don't think that summer school is just for the kids that may have had some issues or challenges or need more support. The summer series, there's 3 tiers for everybody. The SBS Summer Academy for SOLs, for struggling in English and math. Regular summer schools to repeat a course and to take a new course. The Summer Bridge program, introduce you to the next grade level, introduce you to the next subject in the sequence. So yes, it's 1 month. We are making it as fun as possible. You have my word on that. We even have some geocaching that's going to go on where you're going to do like the SBS quest or journey. We haven't really come up with a name with it yet, where there will be QR codes all around the city. And when you scan that QR code with your phone or your device, you'll be able to learn something new about Suffolk that you may not know. And then the students will kind of be able to take pictures and show all the work they've done. Special shout out to Katrina Carey, our supervisor of history and social studies, is going to lead that effort for us. How can the city not focus on the youngest citizens? My goodness, they aren't even going to talk about this until January 22. Not sure what you mean on that. Are you talking about the city council? That's just a cycle. You know, we can't blame the city council on that. They always do the CIP for the city in January, which is part of the reason why the school board does theirs in December, so that the city will understand what the school's needs are. Now, the CIP in the city is actually on a 10-year cycle, right? You can kind of see everything that's projected to occur over the next 10 years. Our school board has asked for some things to be moved up because of the overall need of the school division. I mean, we have about $3.575 million to take care of all maintenance for all 21 buildings. You can only do that for so long. This is part of the reason why you all have heard me say that, okay, when we got some of our first round of CARES Act money, I'm using it to fix our facilities, right? But we always had to make sure that we tied it back to learning loss, to instruction. But some things needed to be done. Remember, a couple of minutes ago, I talked about $14 million needed for roof replacement. And, you know, if your classroom starts leaking, just think about all the damage that it can occur to the walls, to the technology, etc. What about kids under 5 years old who have older siblings graduate? Do they need a ticket? Yes, every living human will need a ticket. Well, high school students that need summer school, will they be charged this year? Summer school is free again for all SPS folks. I've already answered the question about JFK. What school sites will be offering summer school? We kind of anticipated that. Thank you, Dr. Davenport, for giving me this information. Elementary summer school will be at Florence Bowser, Hill Point, and MacBin. Middle school summer school will be at Kings Fork Middle School. High school summer school will be at Kings Fork High School. Extended school year, ESY, elementary school at MacBin, middle school and high school at Kings Fork Middle. After all the shifts this last year and a half due to COVID, will there be social, emotional, educational resources to support all students and support mental health? I hope school violence will not return when kids go back to school. That is our hope too. That's a great question. You know, we did our social emotional work this year. Dr. Rice led that effort. We really kind of rolled some things out in October, November timeframe. And in the beginning of the school year was more check-ins, but then we got actually into some strategies. And one of the new positions that we have actually proposed, if our budget gets approved, is a social emotional supervisor, which is going to help lead that effort. So I agree with you 100%. Our students have been through a lot. Our families have been through a lot. But I have been extremely impressed with the overall grit and resilience and teacher ingenuity, student creativity. I mean, we've asked our folks to do a lot. And that's part of the reason why, we wanted to make sure that we had that student voice in a lot of our decisions. That's also part of the reason why we wanted to make sure that we really checked in on our teachers. We were very strategic in a lot of things that we did when it comes to our teachers. We gave you your first bonus of $500 for all full-time staff in December because you never know how the pandemic affected families. but I also wanted to make sure that you had some money in your pockets in case you can really, help to reward yourself or your family with some Christmas gifts. And our second bonus, as we were the only school division in probably the whole region that gave a second bonus, actually is on your checks for today for our full-time and part-time staff and instructional assistants. We want to do everything that we can to really just acknowledge all the great hard work of our staff. Part of the reason why last year we revised the teacher salary scale, did some great work with our bus drivers, doing some things with our support scale for next year. You've heard me talk about how we really had to bring the Suffolk Public Schools pay scales up to speed. And shout out to Wendy Forsman in the Budget and Finance Department, Diane Wash, and everybody that worked so hard to make sure that Suffolk is improved. It's really improved. There's usually two reasons why people leave a school division. The first one is usually how they're treated or their support. And the second one does end up being pay. And we knew it was going to be difficult for us to continue to try to retain all of our best talent if we couldn't compete with all the other school divisions in the region. Will there be food delivery this summer as well as next school year? This summer, yes, I can definitely say that. We got to take a look at how next school year is going to work. More than likely, but still kind of working on some different mandates that may come down from the state. And it's really about, our qualification of our overall percentage of students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch. But I can tell you right now, last week was School Lunch Hero Day. And, I was at Kings Fork High School. Shout out to Dr. Whiting in the Food Nutrition Services Department. Shout out to Beverly Young in our Transportation Department. Folks, we've probably transported 1.2 million meals since March of 2020. And anytime there were holidays or breaks, Dr. Whiting's team was putting together a 5- and 7-day meal package. It was always going to be our goal to make sure that no one ever went hungry. Will teacher assistants have the opportunity to be virtual, especially with health conditions? That's probably, pre-existing medical conditions are going to play a role. But I'll be honest, the biggest thing that's going to play a role is going to be the needs of the kid. And so if a student stays virtual and within their IEP, for example, if it says that they need to have some one-on-one, then yes, we will have a teacher assistant right there. All right. Thank you, Dr. Davenport, for answering that question. Will every student in the SPS get a free breakfast and lunch for next year? We're hoping so. That's more information that we will be able to answer. And that's something that we're going to take a hard look at. Again, that's going to really depend on those percentages. Thanks for your support and encouragement. Okay. Take a look at these. Some of these were live. And thank you, Ms. Workman, for updating my sheet as we were going on. I just want to thank you all definitely for participating. And I'll probably do another one of these. I think my next one will probably be in August. As we have some upcoming deadlines, it's going to be our goal, to kind of give you an idea of the courses that your child is confirmed for next year. When they get their end of the year report card, you won't see the teacher because teachers can change. But it's really going to be important for you all to have some idea of it. As I said, summer series is going to look completely different. My plan at the June school board meeting is to kind of give our school board like a visioning presentation from me so that the school board and the school community will know that this is what we have planned for the summer. This is what we have planned for the 21-22 school year. Big announcement last night. Center for Performing and Production Arts coming to a theater near you at Lakeland High School for the beginning of the 2022-2023 school year. We're going to do some upgrades to the auditorium. We're going to create some soundproof rooms, recording studios, etc. Some different pathways for our kids, really tied into entrepreneurialism and business. Really getting them to understand everything that kind of goes behind being, having the mic in your hand, right? Because the producers make more money than the artists. And Dr. Davenport's presentation last night really highlighted there's 15 studios that we know of in the Hampton Roads area. We're going to partner with several, kind of learn from several higher learning institutions on how it all works. And the goal is to really have 50 students in that program every year, which will also help to increase the enrollment of Lakeland High School. Within 4 years, as we continue to roll out more courses in that pathway, we'll have about 200 students ideally in that program. Do students keep their Chromebooks and hotspots issued this year to have for next year? Chromebooks, probably, yeah. Hotspots we need to collect, because actually the hotspots are being upgraded. And that really comes back to some of the feedback that you all gave us. Hotspots work very well when it comes to just getting broadband access. But as soon as you turn on video, because video takes up so much more data usage, it kind of goes out pretty quickly. Yes, Miss O'Neill, I love there's such a massive force shifting to the arts. And that came from you all. When I had my Meet the Superintendent series in October of 2019, when I first started, and had one at each one of the high schools, a lot of people really spoke about the need to really focus on arts. And the Center for Performing and Production Arts is actually what I wanted to start this year. But we had to put it back a year because of the pandemic. So we're excited that the board approved that last year. I mean, they were glowing. Last night's school board meeting was excellent. It was great. I mean, just so much love and support. Just going out there. Thank you all for all of your support that you've given us this year. To me, that's what it's really all about. And just the empathy. That's one of the things that our team really talks about in Team Suffolk, is really having empathy for our students, empathy for our staff. And we're coming down, we have less than 30 days left. So we're coming down here to the final stretch. I know a lot of people are looking forward to the upcoming Memorial Day, but SOL testing is going on. Can my son return to the hotspot, or does a parent have to do it? As long as we get it back. But I'll leave that up. If you want to email John Littlefield for that, he'll be able to answer on your question for you. Any information on rezoning? Rezoning hasn't come up. Rezoning really hasn't come up. I mean, rezoning was an issue that was actually discussed during our facility study when we had the joint meeting with the city council in January. But there's so many things that go into rezoning, and it can actually become a political nightmare. The focus is to rebuild our schools. That's what we need to do, Suffolk. I mean, and we've shown that we can do it. I mean, look at Colonel Fred Cherry. Look at Florence Bowser. I mean, and if we do get the opportunity to rebuild these schools, really being able to use some of the prototypes that already exist, maybe making some improvements and tweaks based on what we need now. As a part of the visioning meeting that I have with RRMM, I kind of want to get away to specific classrooms being used for certain subjects, probably except for science because of the lab component. Our classrooms need to be more multi-purpose. We need to have more digital technology available so that kids have more collaboration spaces and they can look up on a monitor to be able to do things, as well as, of course, using their Google Meet and Zoom and things for collaboration online. When is SBS going to add a Black History course to curriculum? You're late there, Montreal Scott. We already did that, man. Come on, you got to go to the website and check that out. When will we know if graduation tickets increase? Only if there's a change. Only if there's a change coming from the state's office when it comes to social distancing. And so again, students will get their graduation tickets at graduation practice. So we still have some time because graduation practice doesn't happen until a couple of days before graduation. So if a student chooses a course that is not at SBS for summer school, then they have to pay. But if it's available at SBS, they don't. Correct. And Dr. Davenport, if you want to answer that question right there from Ms. Stevens, as you're scrolling and looking, Kendra Hope Canterbury Stevens asked a specific question that you may want to answer. Cassandra Wright, no proms. Sorry, that was specific in Executive Order 72. And I understand that, we got some families up here that are putting on your own thing. Be careful, because that violates the governor's order. So if the police show up, you're violating the governor's order. Be careful. There you go, Lauren Lee. Montreal. She says she teaches the course at Lakeland. Thank you so much. If you have special circumstances like 2 birth parents and 2 step parents, can you get 4 tickets? Amber, 2 tickets for everybody as of right now. Lauren Lee, amazing. Love it. Well, folks, it is 2:42. I promised that I wasn't going to keep you all long today. If any information comes out from my emergency superintendent's meeting that takes place at 4:30 today, we'll definitely make sure that our community engagement department sends out some information to you. We're always going to keep you all in the loop. Suffolk Public Schools is the only source for everything related about Suffolk Public Schools. Don't go anywhere else. Come to us. It is the only accurate source. Only accurate source for anything related to Suffolk Public Schools. This school division, we're getting calls from all over the country right now for a lot of the things that we are trying to do. And I can let you all know we have some big plans coming up. in the very near future, which is part of the reason why I'm probably going to talk to you all again like this in August, unless something changes between now and August. With less than 30 days left in the school year, I just want to say thank you to all of our families, students, staff, business supporters. Tremendous job this year. I love each and every one of y'all. Love the city. Take care and have yourself a great weekend.